All right, so we've got a ton of research here
Yeah.
about AI in policing.
Uh-huh.
And it feels kind of like we're stepping into
Oh.
like a Black Mirror episode.
Totally.
It's getting real out there.
Yeah, it's not just like a theoretical debate anymore.
Exactly.
I say.
We've got real examples now.
Yeah.
Like, even with all the controversy and public pushback, you've got cities like New York and London, they're like full steam ahead
Yeah.
with this AI surveillance stuff.
With facial recognition.
Right, and that's
That's the core issue.
yeah, even after all those reports of like systems misidentifying people.
Yeah. How do we
Right.
balance security and freedom?
It's a tough one.
It is.
So, okay, let's look at the arguments from both sides.
Yeah.
It seems like those who are like pro-AI in policing, they're really focused on how AI can process data so fast.
Yeah, like way faster than humans ever could.
Right, like identifying suspects.
And finding those crime hot spots.
Yeah.
It's like
Super fast.
giving the police this force multiplier, you know?
Wow. Yeah.
Like imagine an algorithm just sifting through hours of footage in seconds.
Or finding patterns
Yeah.
that would take...
In crime data.
Yeah, that would take humans days.
Yeah, like days and days to uncover.
Yeah. You've got a case study in here about LA.
Oh, yeah.
They did this pilot program using AI to predict crime hotspots.
Right.
And they say it actually led to like a 10% reduction in violent crime.
Which is huge.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah, and this is what advocates are saying.
Right.
Like Police Commissioner Michael Foster,
Yeah.
he's saying that these systems, they're not meant to replace officers.
Right.
They're meant to help them.
It's like an extra tool.
Yeah, he actually said AI can be like an additional layer of security.
Right.
Not a replacement for human judgment.
So it's like AI handles the data,
Yeah.
and then officers are free
Right.
to focus on other things.
More complex stuff.
Yeah, like community engagement.
Exactly. Which sounds good in theory.
Yeah, does sound good. But
There's another side to this story, you know?
Okay.
And critics are saying that these systems could make things worse when it comes to bias.
Really?
Yeah.
So they're saying that instead of
making things fairer,
yeah,
it could actually
reinforce the existing biases in the justice system.
But how does that even happen? Like, how can an algorithm be biased?
Right.
It doesn't.
That's a good question.
It doesn't have opinions.
Yeah, the problem is it's the data the AI is trained on.
Okay.
So if the data already has bias, the AI will learn that and then repeat it. It's like...
Because
It's like if you...
perpetuating the problem.
Yeah, you teach a kid
Yeah.
with a biased textbook.
Yeah.
They're going to learn biased stuff.
You've got some examples in here.
I do. Of how this has already happened. Like that study about the algorithm for risk assessment before trials.
Yeah, for pretrial release.
And it was flagging Black defendants as high risk.
Right.
Way more than white defendants.
Yeah. And that's
scary.
That's a major concern.
Yeah.
That these systems are going to amplify the inequalities.
They're supposed to be fixing.
Yeah, instead of...
That's terrifying.
Instead of helping.
And then beyond the bias issue, there's the whole privacy thing.
A privacy nightmare.
Yeah, are we like headed towards a surveillance state?
It's a question a lot of people are asking.
Yeah, where every move is tracked.
Yeah, and analyzed.
Oh, man.
You know, there's a quote in here from Sarah Jones. She's a civil rights lawyer.
Okay.
And she says, we have to ask ourselves, if we're trading our freedom for a false sense of security...
That's a chilling thought.
It is.
And that's where the global perspective comes in.
Oh, yeah. You've got some interesting comparisons in here.
Right. Like how different countries are approaching this whole AI and policing thing.
Totally different approaches.
Yeah, it's a real mixed bag. You've got Europe. They're all about data privacy. They want strict regulations.
Yeah, and facial recognition and all that. And then you've got places like China.
Yeah.
Just going for it.
Full speed ahead.
Yeah.
With AI and public safety.
Not a lot of debate over there.
No.
Not really.
So it feels like we're at this crossroads.
It does feel that way.
Like, do we embrace AI?
And risk.
And risk, like, this dystopian future?
Yeah. Or do we pump the brakes?
Yeah.
And miss out on the good stuff?
Potential benefits.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
It is a tough one. And
it seems like...
even the experts.
Yeah.
They don't have all the answers.
You've highlighted some really interesting opinions in here.
Oh, yeah. Like, totally different perspectives.
Like Dr. Alan Smith. The AI ethics professor.
Yeah. He thinks we need, like, super strict oversight.
To prevent AI from becoming a tool of oppression.
Right.
And then you've got Laura Kim,
Huh?
She's a CTO at a big security firm.
Okay.
And she thinks AI can be good for law enforcement.
Yeah.
If it's done responsibly.
Responsibly.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here?
That's the big question.
How do we deal with all this?
Yeah.
It's a complex
It's a complex landscape.
and honestly kind of terrifying landscape.
I know it is a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's what we're going to talk about next time.
Oh,
We'll look at some more specific examples of how AI is being used today.
All right.
And we'll dig into the ethics
Yep.
and what all this might mean in the long run.
The long-term implications.
Exactly.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've been talking about the two sides of AI in policing.
Yeah, the hopes and the fears.
Right. Some people think it'll make us safer.
More efficient.
Yeah, while others are worried about bias.
And that loss of privacy. Yeah. It's a lot to unpack.
It really is.
So let's get into some real-world examples.
Okay.
You've got some stuff in here about how police are using AI to analyze body camera footage.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff.
What's the idea behind that?
Well, the thinking is that AI can help spot things that humans might miss.
Okay.
Like potential misconduct or excessive force.
So it's like having another set of eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
All that footage.
And AI can do it much faster than humans.
Right.
So it could help increase transparency and accountability.
Makes sense. I mean, there's so much footage.
Right.
It would take forever for humans to review it all.
Exactly.
So AI can flag potential issues.
Yeah, and some departments are even using it to flag positive interactions, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like when officers are doing a great job.
So it's not just about catching the bad stuff.
Right. It's about recognizing good policing, too.
That's interesting. I guess that could be helpful for training.
Yeah, if you can see what's working well. You can use those examples to train other officers.
Right.
You've got an example in here of a department using AI analysis for de-escalation training.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
They're using footage of successful de-escalations to teach other officers how to do it.
That's pretty cool. But are there any downsides to relying on AI for this?
Well, there are always limitations.
Oh.
Like AI can misinterpret things.
Especially in chaotic situations.
Right. And there's always the risk of bias.
Right, because of the data it's trained on.
Exactly.
So it seems like human oversight is still crucial.
Oh, absolutely.
AI can be a tool.
But it shouldn't replace human judgment.
Okay, and that brings us to another application you mentioned. Predictive policing.
Yeah, this one's a bit sci-fi.
Yeah, like Minority Report.
Right.
Using algorithms to predict crime.
Yeah, before it even happens.
Is that even possible?
Well, the idea is to use data to identify high-risk areas.
Okay.
Like historical crime data, weather patterns.
Social media even?
Yeah, even things like that.
So it's not about predicting specific crimes.
Right. It's more about identifying areas
where a crime is more likely.
Exactly.
And then police can focus their resources there.
Yeah, and supporters say it could help prevent crime.
But what about bias?
That's a huge concern.
Yeah. I mean, if we're using historical data.
Right. And that data reflects existing biases.
Then the AI will just perpetuate those biases.
Exactly.
So instead of preventing crime.
We could end up targeting certain communities unfairly.
And reinforcing those same patterns.
Yeah. It's a real danger.
That's scary. And you mentioned earlier that these algorithms are often opaque.
Right. We don't always know how they work.
So we're trusting these black boxes.
To make decisions that affect people's lives.
It's a bit unsettling.
It is, and that's why transparency is so important.
Yeah, we need to know how these decisions are being made.
Exactly. And we need clear guidelines.
To make sure AI is used ethically.
Absolutely.
So it seems like there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we've got a long way to go.
To make sure AI in policing is a force for good.
Right. We need to be thoughtful and careful.
And make sure it doesn't do more harm than good.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of the concerns with AI and policing.
Yeah, the potential for bias and all that.
But you've also mentioned some ways that AI could be used to make things better.
Right. There's a whole other side to this.
So what are some of the more optimistic applications?
Well, one area that's really interesting is de-escalation and crisis intervention.
Okay, how's that work?
Imagine a situation where police are responding to a mental health crisis. Things are tense, could get out of hand.
Yeah.
Now imagine those officers have AI that can help them.
Okay.
Analyze the person's behavior, their speech patterns, and give the officers advice
on how to de-escalate the situation.
Exactly like a real-time coach.
So the AI is helping the officers stay calm.
And make the right decisions.
That's amazing. And does it actually work?
There's research that suggests it can.
Really?
Yeah, it can reduce the use of force.
And help everyone involved.
Right.
So it seems like AI could actually address some of the problems with policing.
Yeah, it could help change the system for the better.
And you mentioned AI being used for training, too.
Oh, yeah, that's another promising area.
What kind of training?
Well, you've got these AI-powered simulations.
Oh, yeah. I read about those.
They create these virtual environments where officers can practice different scenarios.
So like a video game for cops?
Kind of, but with real-world implications.
And the AI can adapt to what the officer does.
Yeah, and provide feedback.
So they can learn from their mistakes.
In a safe environment.
That's pretty cool. And you can use these simulations to train for specific things.
Right, like de-escalation or implicit bias.
So it's like really targeted training.
Exactly.
That's really impressive. But even with these positive applications,
we still have to be careful.
Yeah, AI is a powerful tool.
It can be used for good or bad.
And it's up to us to make sure it's used for good.
Exactly. That's the big takeaway here.
We have to be thoughtful about how we use AI.
And make sure it's making things better.
Not worse.
Right.
But this has been a really fascinating deep dive.
Yeah, it's a complex issue.
But it's so important to talk about these things.
Absolutely. We need to keep having these conversations.
And figure out how to use AI responsibly.
To create a better future for everyone.
Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.